Hi guys, in this lesson we're going to work with CloudFront cache and behavior settings. In the course download, in the AWS CloudFront folder, you'll find this markdown document, CloudFront cache and behavior. Now what we're going to do is, this is just the basic instructions. I'm going to show you the detail. But basically first we're going to create two S3 buckets. One's going to be called PDF bucket and one's going to be called JPEG bucket with some random characters to make it unique. And we're also going to have our third bucket for a static website. Okay, so the static website is going to be the default index page that gets generated by CloudFront. Then if we put in a slash and the name of a particular file that's a JPEG image, it's going to get redirected to the JPEG bucket. And if we put in slash and then the name of a PDF document, it's going to get redirected to the PDF bucket. So that's the behavior settings that we're going to configure. So let's go ahead and configure this. We need the static website and we need these other two buckets as well. And you'll find also in the CloudFront folder, we've got our index.html. So that's going to just create this static website. And we've got some links to the documents that we're going to put into our buckets here. And then there's some files, and these are the actual files themselves. Okay, so let's head over to S3. Now we need to create these buckets. You can go into S3 itself. Of course, I'm going to open S3, but I'm also going to open Cloud Shell in another window. That way I can just use the AWS CLI commands. All right, so let's create our buckets. AWS S3 MB for make bucket, S3:// and I need my static dash website and then make that unique. Got that one bucket. Now let's create another one. This one is going to be for the PDFs. So PDF dash bucket, and then again I'm going to make it unique. And the same thing for the last bucket, which is going to be the one with the JPEG images in it. So that will be JPG-bucket, and to make it unique. Great, so I have my three buckets. Let's come back and refresh in S3. The static website is going to be configured as a static website. So we need to do a couple of things. Let's go to permissions. We need to disable the block public access. So let's save changes here and then just confirm. Now we need a bucket policy, so let's click on edit. Now if you select here, then you should get this add new statement on the right. Let's click on add new statement, and I'm just going to backspace those curly brackets under principal, put in inverted commas and a star in the middle. We're going to backspace the hard brackets here, the square ones, put in inverted commas and then lowercase s3: get object, and then for resource it's going to be another wildcard. Okay, but we need the slash and we need the bucket ARN in front of it. So copy the bucket ARN, and that's our policy statement. This is going to enable public access. Get object, allow for the static website. And let's save changes. Let's go back to objects, upload, add files, and in the CloudFront folder I'm going to choose my index.html and click on upload. And then let's close out of there, come over to properties, scroll down, edit next to static website hosting, enable, and then type in index.html. So because we made it public, we're going to be able to test it before we add it to CloudFront. So now we can go down to the bottom, click on the static website URL, and we can see our static website. So it's currently publicly available. Excellent, that one is done. So we are done at the moment for the static website. Let's go back to buckets. Let's go to JPEG, and I'm just going to add my JPEG images. So I'm going to go to files, and I've got coffee and donut. So let's add donut there, and then add coffee, and then upload. Okay, I've got those two. Let's come back. Let's go to PDF bucket and do the same thing. But now we're going to add in these PDFs. So now we have the two buckets for the files, the PDF and the JPEG. We've uploaded our sample files. We've created a bucket for the static website. We enabled public access. We added the index.html. Now we need to create a CloudFront distribution. We'll add the static website as the origin. Initially we'll disable caching, and then we're going to add two more origins for the buckets that contain the files. We're going to use an origin access control to restrict access, and we're going to configure the cache behavior for those. So let's go to CloudFront. Now we're just going to type in CloudFront. Let's head over to the CloudFront console. I'm going to click on create a CloudFront distribution. Click where it says choose origin domain. Choose my static website. Now it pops up and says it tells you that it's a static website, and they recommend using the S3 website endpoint rather than the bucket endpoint. I like that, so let's choose use website endpoint. We can leave the protocol as HTTP. We can scroll down. We don't need to enter an origin path. In fact, we don't need to change anything here, except I'm just going to disable caching. So it does say it's recommended. Of course, we want to cache our objects normally. That's the way that we would normally do it. But first, I'm going to disable caching. And then we don't need an origin policy. That's optional. So let's just scroll all the way down. We don't need a default root object in this case because it's a static website. So the static website configuration will already return the index.html. Okay, let's create the distribution. Oh, we have to choose a security protection. I'm not going to enable anything at this point, so it's not going to add AWS WAF. Now, distributions do take a little while, so now you're just going to have to be a little patient and wait a few minutes until the distribution is working. Before we add the other origins, I want to check that I can connect to the distribution using the distribution domain name and see the web page being returned. So it looks like my distribution is ready, so I'm going to copy my distribution domain name. Let's put this into a browser window, and there we go, we get our static website. Of course the links won't work, but we've got our static website being returned from Amazon S3 via CloudFront. Excellent. So what we want to do now is we need to add our additional origins. So I'm going to come back to origins, I'm going to create an origin, choose, and now I'm going to choose the JPEG bucket, and origin access is going to be using origin access control settings. Okay, so this is where we're going to secure the bucket so that only CloudFront is able to access it. Let's create a control setting, choose create, and it's going to tell us to copy the policy. So I'm going to copy the policy, and then let's create the origin. Now I have one of my origins here. I need to go back to my bucket. So that was the JPEG bucket. So the JPG here. Let's go to permissions, edit the bucket policy, and then paste this in. So now we have this policy here. I think that should be on the first line. There we go. And then so this one allows get object for the resource. So the objects in the bucket, that's this bucket ARN, of course. And then as long as the condition is string equals, the source ARN is the ARN of CloudFront. Okay, so it's only going to allow CloudFront to retrieve objects from the bucket. Excellent. Let's save changes there. Let's come back to our distribution. I'm going to create another origin. This time, I'm going to choose my PDF bucket. And I'm going to change to origin access control. Now, you don't need to create unique ones. So I can actually, I've done this before, but I can actually choose to use one of the ones that I created before. And this one at the bottom is the one that I've just created. Okay, so it says JPEG bucket in it, but it's just the name of the control setting. So don't worry about that. Let's create the origin. And I'm going to come back, go to buckets. I already have it on my clipboard from before. So I'm going to come over to my PDF bucket, and I'm going to paste this in. And all I need to do is change the ARN for the bucket. So I'm going to paste that into here. Everything else is the same, which is why it's okay to reuse these. And it's probably better to change the name so it doesn't look like it's tied to a bucket, because really it isn't. So now we have the OAC settings configured. Let's save changes there. I have my two buckets. So those are my origins. So I've got my three buckets, or the static website, and then I've got the two which have the files in them. I need to create a behavior, or I need to edit a behavior. So that is the default path pattern. That's good, but we do need to create additional behaviors. So I'm going to create one here, which is I'm going to use the /star.jpg and then choose my JPG bucket. Just going to copy this because we're going to do basically the same thing for the PDF. And I can leave the remaining settings as they are. Now, again, we can choose a cache policy. Caching optimized is the default. If you want to turn that off, you can turn that off, which is useful when you want to update the files and you want to instantly see the changes, or you want to delete them and instantly see that the file is gone. Of course, that means that you're not really using the benefits in terms of the performance optimizations, but useful for testing sometimes. So I'm going to leave mine disabled. Let's create the behavior. I'm going to do the same again, create a behavior. This time, I'm just going to change .jpg to PDF, and let's choose the PDF bucket, disable caching, and create the behavior. So now what's going to happen is the very first one here is going to look for /star.jpg, And if it sees that in the file name, so anything that ends, so a wildcard of course, anything that ends in .jpg, it's going to forward to the JPEG bucket. It's going to look for .pdf and forward to the PDF bucket, and everything else is going to go to the static website. Okay, so that's it configured. Let's come up to distributions, and what we can do is just again copy the domain name here and make sure that we're connected to our static website, and let's click on one of these links. That takes me to the donut, which of course is in the JPEG folder. Then I can try coffee. Again, that's in the JPEG folder. Let's try documents. That's in the PDF folder. And data analysis, which is also in the PDF bucket. So that's using path patterns to direct the traffic to specific origins based on what we see in the file name. And that's it for this lesson. So I have finished with my CloudFront distribution. Now, what you can do with CloudFront distributions, you need to come back to the distribution, click on disable, and then disable again. And it's going to take a little while to disable, and you can't delete it until it's been disabled. So what you got to do is just wait a few minutes, and once it's ready, once it's been disabled, you can then select it and click on delete.